Hello and welcome to this week's Green Shoots, a history of Irish football. Coming up shortly is part 2 of our fantastic interview with Waterford FC and League of Ireland legend Alfie Hale, where we talk about his career at Waterford and management, plus we talk about academies, young players and boardrooms too, so stick with us for that. Don't forget to share the show on your social media channels, as well as liking, subscribing and turning on notifications to the show on whatever platform you listen to us on. Next week, Gary is back and we're going to be talking about Northern Ireland's qualification and journey to the 1958 World Cup. So some great stories in there, so join us for that. Now back to part 2 of our interview with Alfie Hale. If you haven't listened to part 1, you can go back and listen to it now. But when we finished part 1, Alfie had just arrived back to Waterford after his time in England with Aston Villa, Doncaster Rovers and Newport County, where he'd gotten a job as a van salesman so that he could play again for Waterford FC. And that's where we pick up the conversation from last time.
But I do obviously want to talk to you about your time at Waterford and that extraordinary team. You arrived, I think, just after they had won the league in 66, after being rock bottom in 65, which was in and itself alone an extraordinary turnaround as well. I suppose to start the conversation about Waterford, I suppose you have to talk about maybe the manager, Paddy Code, as well. What kind of manager was he to you? And I suppose what did he do to get the best out of players in that team?
Well, Paddy Code was exceptional in every sense, talking football. First of all, Paddy, I played with Paddy. He was released from Shamrock Rovers on his 39th birthday, I think, just going on 40. And he joined Waterford, which was the tail end of my last season when I left. Alex Stevenson had left Waterford and Paddy had replaced him, Paddy Code. So Paddy Code was my manager in the year that I went to Aston Villa. And we went to a cup semi-final there. The legendary Charlie Tully from Glasgow Celtic was playing with Cork Hibernians and they beat us in the cup semi-final. Paddy Code was player manager at 39 in that team. And Code was a genius. As far as not only I was concerned, lots of people that I spoke to in Shamrock Rovers and people who played in England for years. And he initially came in at 59 and saw me off to Aston Villa. And the following season, I think that was in 1960. You're talking about 65, 5 years later then, Paddy had left him for a while as a player manager and then come back later as a manager. So in his first management, I came into that team. And unfortunately, after he won the first league championship in 66, 67 was a year when I think me coming up from England was the start of what they had hoped would be a winning sequence. We didn't win the league in 67. It was a one gap. It was the years after that we won 3 in a row. Then we won another 3 or something like that afterwards. But Paddy Code was identified with the first league winning team as a manager. And I felt, he was a very, very good manager. But whatever happened with Paddy leaving at that stage, I don't know. Because the year following the league championship win was obviously a disappointment. When you reach a standard of winning the league, I think we finished 3rd place or something in my first year home, the first year with Pete Thomas as well. And Paddy was replaced by Vinnie Maguire. I think it was Martin Ferguson that stepped in they brought him from England. And I had played with Martin in Doncaster. That's the brother now of Alex Ferguson.
Yeah, that's right.
The manager. But I don't want to go off on a tangent now, Keelan, insofar as that, are we talking about Paddy Code now? Because you can talk about Paddy Code forever to you and forget to get off the subject. Because I idolise him. I just tell you quickly how he was rated. In my latter years, after many trips to Dublin for occasions of the Football of the Year, the nights and whatever were there, I happened to be there one particular night on an invitation. And also there were Con Martin, I had played for with Waterford after his Aston Villa days. Con Martin, Peter Farrell, who was captain of Everton, Tommy Eglinton, right, who was the outside left for Everton, Arthur Fitzsimons, who was playing next to Brian Clough at Middlesbrough, and there was another one, Davy Welch of Waterford, who played for Aston Villa and West Brom. They were sitting at a table and they invited me over. I think I was guest of honour. I think it was the player of the year or something like that or whatever. They were kidding me. I thought they were taking a mickey and whatever, but they were asking me questions about football and that. And so I said, well, look, let's be serious for a minute. Can I ask you guys a question? 5 of you have played in what is now the Premier League, the first division then. You've played years there, so you obviously know what's going on over there. But you, said Peter Harlan and Tommy Eglinton, played with him at Shamrock Rovers before he left. And Arthur Fitzsimons played against him. And I said, what do you think of Paddy Cole and how was he rated? He's the man that never went away, but the man that they said would be as good as any of them over there. And Peter Farrell said, I played with him, you're quite correct. And how do I rate him? Paddy Cole would have outshone every one of us in any position, be it in England or anywhere in Europe. He said he was a genius. And all the other 4 there, I think it was 4, there was one I'm missing out, nodded their heads in agreement. Said that's absolutely correct. Cole was a genius. And the players that played for him afterwards would tell you that. He was way ahead. I mean, they talk about Manchester City nowadays and the football they play from the goalkeeper out. Some guys who can't play it and make it look awful. Manchester City with Guardiola, who's a genius in his own right. Paddy Cole before him. Paddy Cole insisted on his fullbacks, on his centre-backs pass the ball. I remember the first time I played against Shamrock Rovers in 1957, a great team of Liam Toohey, Tommy Hamilton. What a player Tommy Hamilton was. Oh, jeez. And he used to come in for Paddy Cole. He came home from Manchester United to avoid joining the army. And Tommy Hamilton, Paddy Ambrose, what a centre forward. Nolly Payton. They had a brilliant team in the 1950s. But Cole in that time, I remember Waterford playing him. Waterford would come out on the pitch like all the other League of Ireland clubs with one football. 2 or 3 of them would kick the ball at the goalkeeper at the end to handle it. Everybody else would do a little bit of knee jerk and run around, sprint here and there. And that was it. Paddy Cole came out under the team, the 11 players, and 11 players had 11 footballs. A football for each one of them. And he was just so far ahead of his time. He took a penalty one time. Tell you this now. Do you have the time to tell you this, Keelan?
You work away.
He was playing in the Leinster Cup final. I was listening to the radio as a young lad. Shamrock Rovers were playing Shelbourne in a Leinster Cup final, which was a very big thing in the 1950s. This is the early 1950s now.
Yeah.
1952.
Massive tournament back then.
And Dalymount Park was packed. And the referee, Philip Green, was commenting on the game. And the referee gave a penalty to Shamrock Rovers. And there was a lot of dispute about it, particularly from the goalkeeper and the other defenders. And Cole went and put the ball on the spot, on the penalty spot, and waited for the referee to give him the nod to take the penalty. And everybody else are fighting and arguing, and they're standing over the ball, won't let Cole take the penalty, right? So Cole is standing there calmly, as he always was, never lost his nerve at all in any sense. So they're arguing, and the referee eventually says, right, out, everybody out. Here. He said, Cole, he nods at Cole to take the penalty, right? Now, Cole had placed the ball on the penalty spot, but this seemed like minutes later. So what normally anybody would do, if they say, well, who is taking the penalty? So they said, yes, it's Cole. So Cole goes back up, but they forgot that he had placed the ball earlier. So he goes up to place the ball, and he places the ball. The goalkeeper relaxes, and Cole just pushes the ball past him into the net. And everyone said, you didn't wait for the whistle. And the whistle was gone the first time, and he had been the referee had told him, go ahead and take the penalty. And everybody was still disputing the penalty, and the ball was in the net. And actually, Johnny Giles did something similar against Waterford in a cup semi-final, only in about, 10, 20 years ago, in the 1980s.
Yeah.
Johnny Joy's penalty against Waterford. Peter Thomas turned his back on the ball, on the goal, walking back after disputing it. And Joyce just rolled the ball into the net. Everybody said, what's going on? That's a goal. Sorry, Keane, go on.
No, that's a great story. It's a great story. It proves I suppose the genius of the man, where he understood what was happening in the moment too. But you won the league then in
68, wasn't it? 68, 69, and 70. 3 years.
Yeah, it was the first of the treble, the three in a row. But in that year as well, you also played Manchester United too. Your old friend from before, Dennis Law, was the I suppose the crucifier on that occasion. But you did play. Yeah. You did play against Manchester United in the European Cup because you qualified, because you were champions as well. So was that an extraordinary, I suppose, for yourself in terms of, I suppose, the irony of it coming full circle for you to come and play and walk out against Manchester United at Old Trafford as well. Yes,
it was, because as what you said, it's ironic in many ways that it was a match to remember. It was it was more than just a match. It was an occasion that sticks out in your life. And the question you asked me, the way you put it, actually just springs to mind. What happened at the end of that is that when we were leaving to go home from Manchester in the airport, who did I bump into coming out of a plane from the airport was Joe Mercer.
Wow.
And he was on a European adventure with Malcolm Allison with Manchester City. And he came over to say hello, and I introduced him to some of the lads, and it was a lovely feeling, a lovely meeting, and he greeted me very well and talked up a lot about me and
brilliant, yeah.
The other players, the other Waterford players. And as it was quoted in the book, it was nice to see that my writer said is that Alfie got what he had wanted after the playing Manchester United in Old Trafford and the occasion award. And Joe Mercer got what he eventually wanted, with Manchester City winning the league championship. And it was a lovely meeting, and it was in many ways there was no regrets. I had the regret was that I left him down, basically, and he thought so much of me, and he said that to a lot of people. So I'm not saying something that was a secret that only he and I knew. That what he did, and as a man, I loved him. And his wife, she was a gorgeous woman, Nora. She used to come and look after Sis, being away from home and whatever. And they were just lovely people. That's what I liked about football. That's what I loved about football, is the nice people you met, the lovely people you met, the friends you made. And they mean more than all the medals and all that. I mean, what provides the occasion is a chance of winning a medal or something. But it's the memories afterwards, they're fantastic, really fantastic.
Yeah,
that Manchester games were this still for so many people. People today look back and they talk about it. My daddy was telling me about this, and my granddad was telling me about this. And it was very big occasions. And there was a great friendship between Manchester and Waterford afterwards, like, you know.
So you win the title with Waterford 68, 69, 70. Was there ever a thought that that kind of winning streak was there to be had? I mean, 65, you were rock bottom in the league. Nobody saw this coming at all, and all of a sudden you're winning 4 league titles in the space of 5 years. What was in that team, I suppose, that drove you all on to be that successful?
Yeah, well, first of all, I get this off the top of my head while I remember it, and it always gets to me. I've always promoted local talent. Now, it's important that you also relate to success. It's no point in promoting local talent if it's not going to be successful to some degree. And over the years, I've just dug out all the statistics, and the most successful any Waterford team has been a merger of players coming from Scotland, England, and local players in Waterford. And sometimes they forget and forgot what got them there. And the first league championship that was won was, as you say, just after the warnings from the FAI or the League of Ireland to wake up or you're out of football. The team that won, the squad that won the first league championship for Waterford, with Paddy Code as manager, comprised of 16, 17 players, and 11 of them were local players. Now, as time went on, and when eventually the balloon burst in Waterford in 1974, 75, 76, it had been reduced to about 3 local players, and the rest were coming in. Now, we identified Peter Thomas and Peter Bryan, Johnny Matthews, as local players afterwards. And they weren't real local players, but they all came to live here, and they committed themselves here, as Jimmy McGill did from Derry City. And we looked on them as local players. And what it looked on is basically we trained together, we travelled together, we did everything together. That left us in the success that carried on for 6 years, diluted into players coming from Dundalk, the players that came from England, Bristol flying them in on a weekend that you never saw during the week. All of what we had in the Jackie Morley, Vinnie Maguire days, as I call them, the double centre half that they had, the passion that they had for Waterford football. Maguire lived in Waterford. Jackie Morley was the only outsider in that Waterford team that travelled from Cork every week. But Jackie Morley would come down for days to train, especially for to be with the lads. And there was nobody more local than Jackie was. And if people ask for success nowadays, they can't really identify with the area. It's false. It's not what it should be. And I'm not saying that they're not better players, but you can't bring in players if they're not committed to a club. And initially, you bring in local players, and they're frowned upon, and there's impatience from supporters. And look, he's no use. I went to school with his father, and so I worked with him, and blah blah blah, and all this old rubbish that goes on. I produced players from Waterford, and players produced before my time, in my brother's times. Great players, the Fitzgeralds, the Codes, the O'Neills, all of them. And they were great players. And people ask, where are the good junior players? They don't want to play for Waterford anymore because Waterford don't want them. They don't see them as being important. It might be just to pick one out and say, right, okay, he might have something to offer. Give him 2 or 3 games. Can he play? You need to play this game for 3-6 months before people can adjust from a junior league standard to a League of Ireland standard. The impatience. And we also have today, and we had it 50 years ago, an inferiority complex about England. I played in England, and while everything went over my head in terms of success in that, I noted in later years, the guys I played with at Aston Villa, the young lads that came on trial, the guys who came later, they weren't any better than what we had in Ireland. But what they had an urge to play. They had a passion that I can make it. They got all the incentives in the world to say, you're a very good player. What do we do in Ireland? He's no use. I grew up with him. He's no good. Right, he didn't do anything. He played 2 or 3 games. They judge him on 2 or 3 games. But it's been proven if you give them enough games, they are good players. And I'm talking for all of League of Ireland players, basically. And I think it's a shame what's going on in this country. They talk about academies with kids coming through and everything else. What they're looking now for is a little diamond to come across, maybe like a Roy Keane, if there ever is one, that we get him and we'll get a pile of money, put it in. Now, what happened with Dundalk in League of Ireland football? It's a disgrace. that it happened, and if it should happen to any other club. And I think clubs like Waterford and everybody need to look out and say, where are we going? Where are we coming from? What do we need? What do we want? And basically,
I think part of that, it's interesting to say that, because I think part of it is going after the short-term gains and not the long-term games. So like when you say when you have to develop talent and you have to develop players and all that kind of stuff, that can take 3 or 4 seasons for it to kind of all come together and actually start clicking, because you've got young players mixed with some good experience, and that takes time to gel and fit. And I think sometimes clubs, and we see it quite often with Irish League of Ireland clubs, is they're going after the 1 or 2 seasons that they're in this point here, instead of looking to 3, 4, 5 years down the line when they can have a conveyor belt of talent coming through, where they can keep, having these great players. And I think you're kind of right from that point of view, in that, are we developing talent for the league, or are we developing talent to sell?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's the question that's been asked, and it's probably take another couple of years to make a judgment on that. And I would hope, people see me as a guy who's looking for problems. I'm not looking for problems. I'm looking to solve them. But I wish the Waterford the football club at the moment, from a Waterford point of view, the management there, a man called John Coleman, I've read about his past, his reputation, and what he's put into football. And I would love that type of guy, because he reminds me very much of myself. I think he deserves success. He's hungry for it. He loves football. But it's the people above that make the decisions. That's where I query. And I think they have got to show. We are dead keen on putting Waterford on the map in terms of being a top football team. But to do that, you can't be letting your best players go. I mean, from the point of looking at Waterford at the moment, Fleetwood Town is the team that Waterford feed. It should be the opposite way around. Waterford shouldn't be losing their best player to clubs like Fleetwood. If they want to lose them to Arsenal, lose them to Manchester United, and get some compensation for them, to buy in somebody who's equally as good, if not better. But what's happened in Dundalk and in other places, possibly Sligo and whatever, I don't know. But it's come back to legislation. It comes back to the people who really don't know very much about the game, but are making the big decisions on it. And there are very nice people, good people in officialdom, in the FAI and in League of Ireland football, and they want to do best. But unfortunately, there's not enough of them. There's too many of them can walk away when the club are having a bad time and say, I'm going back to my own little business, blah, blah, blah. And they walk out when they're needed most. And that's the way I would see it. And basically, you can understand why players are nervous about taking on a commitment to Waterford or to Sligo or to Cork or whatever. As you said, it could take 3-4 years for it all to come together. And who's going to wait? Nobody wants to wait, and nobody wants to know about it. But if they know it's their own son or their own grandson are involved, they will be very much aware of it. And obviously, everybody can't be a footballer for Waterford, Cork, or Limerick, or Dublin, or whatever it has to be. So it's an issue, it's a problem. But for me, it's down to an inferiority problem of that. We're not good enough. We look, any time we have a problem in football terms, we look to England. We look to England. Roy Keane has gone over there, and he's shown them, all of them, what's needed to play the game. He's talking about no nonsense, getting stuck in, winning tackles, winning the ball, play to win, and you play 3 good games. That doesn't mean you can have a rest in the 4th game.
Yeah.
I mean, what Roy Keane is saying is basically is it's not wisdom coming from somebody that's never spoken before. This is root stuff. That basically, if you want to get anywhere, you got to work hard for it. You got to want it, and you got to need it, and you got to do it. And you expect them to be recognised for it. And the people who are there's so many people. You see, the first thing when a club is in trouble in League of Ireland terms, It's at board level. It comes from board level. And Waterford's future started with a man called Frank Davis in 1965. He joined the club. He wished to join Shamrock Rovers. They didn't need him. He joined Waterford, and it was the best signing they ever made. The man came in and put money into the club, never asked for anything back, never looked for the limelight, stayed behind in everything, and enjoyed what he was subscribing to. And he brought in Jimmy McGill, Peter Thomas, Alfie Hale, and everything on his own back. Mm. And when all that faded out and so much success was coming, it was taken for granted. We fly him in from Spain, and we fly him in from here and there, whatever. And Frank Davis withdrew from it. And all the things started to collapse. All the directors who felt now the onus is on us to show where the money is coming from, and they haven't got it. So they're gone. And I don't want to be unfair to anybody. We had a brilliant chairman. The point I'm making is that if you look for success in any club, you will have to have a strong board level, and you have to have a relationship between the manager of the football and the chairman of that club. And if that is not set properly, and they're both given the authority to make decisions, you're in trouble if that is not a situation. And if it is a situation, you can see clubs who were there, they last and they go on. I mean, do you know one of the most admired clubs in English football would have been in the 60s, 70s and 80s? And they were good days. One of the most admired clubs in English football was a club called Rochdale. Because they stuck with the manager, they did what they needed to do, they signed players when they could, whatever wage bill they could meet, they stuck with it. They honoured every one of the contracts. They were the best club that anybody who left the club to join a bigger club said, that was my club, Rochdale. And who would say that? First thing you say, where's Rochdale? Who's Rochdale? And Rochdale is a little place outside Manchester. I'm not far from it. Mm-hmm. Anyway, sorry, I'm deviating, Keelan.
No, it's good. It's good. That's fantastic stuff. I know I'm taking up a lot of your time, and we're talking on kind of different tangents, but I did want to talk to you about 71-72 season, when you were still playing. Incredible season between you and a fantastic Cork Hibs team, and I suppose the match that's probably gone down in history as one of the most incredible, which was down at Flower Lodge, where you won the title. It was an extraordinary game for you guys. Explain to us, I suppose, what was happening at that time, and maybe even talk a little bit about how that Cork Hibs team kind of pushed you all the way that season.
They matched us in many ways in terms of that the success had come earlier to us than to Cork Hibs. They brought in the manager, Dave Bucuzzi, and he came from Arsenal, and he was a good coach and a very experienced fullback. And then bringing him in led on to the fact that they could start imitating Waterford by bringing in players. And they brought in a couple of players from Leeds United, and then they got the best out of the locals. And they were, like Waterford at the time, they were the perfect match in terms of local base players and lads coming in from England and Scotland and from the England and Scottish leagues. And the blend of that matched the blend of Waterford. So it then came down to who was the more skillful team of the two, and who was the most competitive and who was the stronger. So in some areas, Cork Hibernians would be number one. In other areas, we would be number one. And I think in terms of league championships, it would be fair to say that we proved to be the better all-round team. But they won the cup and they won the league, and they were never far from us. And I don't want to say that in the sense that they weren't as good as us. They were better than us on much occasion. They were better in other ways of maybe defensively looking at the game. But what they did is to be part of an era that was exceptional for many supporters in Cork and many. I mean, at that particular, the game that you referred to when Waterford came back to win 3-2, there was personalities in sport all over the place. in Flower Lodge that day, and everything sort of, or everybody felt that they were going to see some sort of a classic, be it a classic that had problems, a classic that had accidental situations. Did they see exceptional football times during the game? And I think they got it all that day, because basically, and I've said this before, I remember vividly, Shea Brennan was our player manager. He rarely played. He preferred, in his own right, saying that he had better players out there than when he was off the team. I disagreed with him, because we talked a lot. I was his captain, and I felt he should have played in many games that he didn't play. But he felt he had confidence in the players to do it. And on that day, he didn't play. But an hour before that game, Dave Bicuzzi came to me as player coach and captain, and said to me that I think in the position that we're both in, we're playing now for the playoff for the league championship, and we're both playing in the cup final next Sunday in Dalymount Park. Would we both do a walking parade for the crowd that's here? Now, they returned 25,000 at the game, and they reckoned afterwards, because at that stage the clubs shared the revenue on the gate, but they reckoned that the gate was over 35,000 people there. And he asked me, would I take the team out and do a parade with the two teams playing the cup final next Sunday, blah, blah. And I said, well, I don't really know. I don't think so. We haven't won anything. And I said, I'll have a word with Shea. So I said to Shea, listen, they want to have a parade before the game with the two teams there. And he said to me, what do you think? And I said, I feel uncomfortable. I think it's the wrong thing to do. I don't think we've won anything. And we've yet to prove it. So I wouldn't do it if I were you. So he said, well, yeah, I agree with you. So he went back and he said, because the boys are not doing it. So the game opened, and because it was annoyed, but the game opened, and they started at 100 miles an hour. Pace was unbelievable. And I said to myself in the first 5 minutes, Jesus, I'm after making a terrible mistake in that decision. And it looked like it, because early on in the game, they went 1-up. We got a player injured who came off. He was replaced by Vinnie Maguire, who was injured himself, and he was manager later on, or earlier on. And we got another injury, Jimmy McGeough, within a half an hour. So we had nine players, and Vinnie Maguire, who was injured, came on as a sub, and we're 1 down. And we looked like going 2 down. But we'd held him into the second half. And she had said at halftime, just try and keep the ball as best you can. And we had a man who could do that, was John O'Neill in midfield. And John was supreme. Any time that we did get lucky enough to get the ball, he held it and we kept it in tight situations or whatever. So they got a second goal, and I was playing up front. And about 5 minutes after the second goal, Wigginton and Maya Dennehy ran through our defence, and at that stage it is 9.5 against 11. They were playing with us, and they broke our defence, and they were wide open to put the ball past Peter Thomas. But in their eagerness and in their ego to show off how good they were, one played the other one offside, and the goal was disallowed, the third goal. And I turned to Bicuzzi and Noel O'Mahony, a centre back and right back. And I said, and I was half joking. I said, you could, the goal was this, could come back to haunt you, I said, And they looked at me and said, what do you mean, we're all over you, sort of thing. I said, it could come back to haunt you. And it did. We came back to 3-2, but everything went our way in the last 20 minutes. We got the goal, the first goal, which came out of nothing. It was a great goal by Carl Humphreys. And then with 10 minutes to go, Jackie Morley was supposed to handle the ball, which would have made the 3-1 with a penalty. And but the referee, Johnny Carpenter, said, no, it wasn't a handball. And Jackie said after it wasn't a handball. But they said it was. But there's a big deal about it, and they were still talking about it. When we get a penalty, And Johnny Matthews, then Johnny is cocky as hell. Jeez, unbelievable. Couldn't wait. Give me that ball. I'd stick it in the back of the net. And telling the goalkeeper where he's going to put the ball and everything else. And it's 2-1. And remind ourselves that a draw is good enough to win in the title. And he goes up and he slides the ball home, blah, blah, and does his lap of honour on his own, blah, blah, blah. And and the crowd are gone wild. And it's 2-2. But before the crowd went wild, and there was only about 5 minutes to go then, there was at least we said there was a couple of thousand there from Waterford. There was at least half of them had gone back to Youghal. And they got the result on the television in Youghal. They couldn't believe that Waterford came from 2-0 down. And Carl Humphreys got the first goal. Then Johnny got the equaliser with the penalty, which meant that they had to go then all out for a third goal. And they nearly got one. But in an all-out offence to get a third goal, they left the space. We broke. John O'Neill broke. He got fouled for a free kick outside the box. He's out on the right side and he tells me, and it's 2-2 and there's about 2 minutes to go. And Hibs are trying to hurry us up to take the free kick, and we're taking our time. And I said to John O'Apple, because what he did was he floated the ball onto my head and I headed the ball into the net. So John said his intention was, he saw the crowd behind the goal at Flower Lodge. And I'm wondering, he said to myself, can I kick it that far that he can get it past the crowd, delay the game, lose the ball as much as I can? And he said that was my intention. I ran up to the ball, and at the last minute he said, I saw you run off Noel O'Mahony. And he said, I just dunked it in there, basically. And he did, and it was 3-2. And the game was all over, basically, because even if they got an equaliser, it was gone.
Yeah.
Anyway, so, but the atmosphere and the letters that I got afterwards, and the people were there. Christy Ring was there, the fantastic footballer from Kerry, Mick O'Connell, is it? Yeah. All the Kilkenny hurlers were there. Ollie Welch, my friend, and all the boys. They loved it. And we had a great Southeast following, fantastic following from Southeast. But they were all there, all the lads. And it was such, as I said earlier, Keelan, it was like the Manchester City. It was an occasion. It was one that you wouldn't forget. You know, to this day, I get letters about it. What from Cork City lads now, or Cork County lads, I should say. Sorry, Keelan, go on.
No, I was just going to say, it's won you the league. You were joint top scorer as well, 22 goals. You won the league again the next year. Again, you were top of the goal scoring charts with 20 goals as well. I know I'm taking up a lot of your time, but I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about management and you moving into management as well, and in particular at Cork Celtic where you won the league. So what happens for you to get to Cork Celtic, and I suppose what is it that was there or that you helped to bring out in the players to get them over the line to win the league? I joined Cork Celtic as a player, and I was there for I'd say a season and a half, and it's the half season that I ended up as player manager at Cork Celtic. So there was nothing sort of sparkling about that, but in terms of the winning the league championship, that was brilliant. But it was also a very sad occasion for me because I always felt I wanted to leave Waterford and retire from football. I never thought I'd be put in a position where I would have to go. And that arose when we were talking earlier about the football in Waterford changed completely in terms of after winning 6 league titles. I think a lot of the supporters at the time felt we had failed to win the cup, and they felt that this is the one thing we want, and the disappointments. And even winning the 6th league championship at Kilcombe Park for the final game, there wasn't a full house there. It was like, we're tired of winning these sort of thing. And that attitude prevailed. And it sort of, it seemed to result in first a reduced support at Kilcombe Park, which made the money situation from the board very tight. And Frank Davis at that stage
had sort of become disillusioned with it because he had heard that Joe Delaney was coming back on the board with the other board members' wishes. And Frank Davis, who had looked after us in every way for the previous 6 years or whatever it was, 8 years, had decided to leave. I, in the meantime, was still captain with Shea and being his best man for basically advice in every sense. And I think at that stage, Shea was losing interest himself because he wasn't talking to the board members, as he told me, and he wasn't prepared to listen. But they decided in their own right anyway that they'd make decisions without Shea. And the chairman rang me, a new chairman rang me to say that they'd got an offer from Cork Hibernians for me. And I was 35 years of age at this stage. And they wanted to say kept quiet because they didn't want Cork Celtic to hear about it. And the Cork Celtic, who were in the running for the league, now Cork Hibs were at the top of the table. Celtic were coming late in the run. And they said basically they wanted to sign me. And I said to the chairman, how does Shea feel about that? And he said, well, we don't know, to be honest. And he said he's never expressed any views at all. And he was basically dismissing it. And at that stage, they had taken a lot of decisions out of his hands because there were a lot of problems with players, which I won't go into at the moment. But I said, well, where does it leave me? And the chairman said, well, where it leaves you, Alfie? He says, we've got an offer and we want to take it because within another week or two, we won't have the wages to pay the professional players. So if that's the case, I said, well, you're telling me that I got to go. And he said, well, the board is of the view they need the money and they need to take advantage of the situation. So I said, let me go and think about it. So I went away and I thought about it and I spoke to Shea about it and he said, no, I want you to stay. I said, you want me to stay? I said, but they don't want me to stay. I said, there's going to be no wages for the players next week. I said, the club seems to be falling apart and nobody seems to care about it. And he said, no. He said, you got to stay on. And he said that I wanted you to step down as captain. And I said, you what? And he said, well, he said, you're agitating. He said that the club is falling apart. I am. I said, you know it and you see it. I said, now the club has to prove it. I said, they need money to pay the wages next week for the players. And they see me as the way out. I said, that's the situation. And he said, well, look, I'll leave it at that. He said, and we had a match coming off the same day. And we were playing actually Cork Hibernians that day in Kilcone. And I was captain, and he says to me, step down. And I said, look, Shea, to be honest with you, at this stage, I said, it's about time you made the decisions, not the board, not me. No. I said, if you want me to step down, you nominate the captain when we're going out. And I said, don't forget, 4 weeks ago, we played in Cork, and I said to you, the team were falling apart, and the results were going badly, that we had just signed Alfie Hale from Limerick, and Al was in his 40s then, or late 30s. We just signed Alfie Hale. I said, Al has been captain for Limerick for years and years. He's in the centre-back position. I'm a striker up front trying to do my job and concentrate. I said, would it help if I step down from the captaincy and give it to Al and give it a new push and maybe we'll get back to what we're doing? And he said to me, this is in Flower Lodge, outside the ground. He said to me, Alfie, you will always be my captain, and don't ever think of that, and don't ever say something like that to me again. That's the way it is. And 4 weeks later, he's asked me to step down because I was agitating about things. And he said I was quoting the paper. I said, I was only quoting the paper, Shea. I said, because you asked me to deal with the papers. You didn't want to deal with the papers. You asked me, I said, and I'm supposed to be a captain. I said, I will be blamed by players when they're dropped, that I'm dropping them. And when there's a player being brought into the team, he's getting credit from you or for you. So basically, that was the situation. On the Sunday, 10 minutes before we were going out, John O'Neill said, hey, boss, come on, let's go. And I said, we're not going out. I'm not taking you out, lads. So the silence and they're looking at me, and then Shay is sitting there, and he's in a corner, and he says to Alfie Newcombe, Al, take him out. So Al picks up the ball and takes it out, and that's it. And I said to myself in my head, this looks like it's my last game for Waterford. Nobody seems to want me to stay. And I got a phone call during the week saying the club had agreed. Yeah, Cork Celtic had come in, heard about the deal, made a bigger offer. Celtic wanted to sign, and the board wanted to go. So I signed, and I went and played. And the rest is history as far as I'm concerned, but I joined Celtic then with they were on a good run. And from their point of view, they felt that I was the final piece in the jigsaw sort of thing. And we won the league. I could go on about it. If you want me to, if you're running out of time or anything else, tell me.
No.
Ian,
I just wanted to. I wanted to make sure that we got in to talk about your managerial career, because it's just as good in terms of, I suppose, the success that you had as a player, in terms of what you brought.
Oh yes,
and things like that as well. So, in terms of that, like you, as you mentioned, you went and you won the league as a. Am I right in saying as a player manager with Cork Celtic, or?
Absolutely right. Yes, yeah. I stepped in again to help out. I told them I came home to play. I don't want to manage. I don't want to coach at Newport County. I don't want to coach at Waterford. I want to stay out of it. But what happened basically is, in the middle of coming home, and the year after winning the league, when they decided to leave Paddy Code go, Vinnie Maguire decided he needed to step down. He was exhausted from player management and decision to be made. And we were halfway through the season. And they came to me and asked, would I take the job? And I said, no, I don't. I said, it'll affect my play and it won't do the club any good. For me, concentrating on doing well and playing well is all that's important to me. But putting the management on my back, a responsibility, and to play with it, I said, I'd find it impossible. Now, having said that, there's two people that have been brilliant player managers in their careers. One was Johnny Giles, the other one was Paddy Code. Nobody else, to my knowledge, has ever been a successful player manager. It's a difficult job. But anyway, they were in a position, and they said, look, would you take the job to help out just for this and the end of the season? We promise you can go back to playing again. And so I looked at it and I thought, well, okay, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll take the job. If you, the people who sacked Paddy Code, allow me to bring him back as my first team coach. And looked at it. And I said, well, look, I'm telling you now, that's the only reason I'm taking the job. If you don't accept that, I'm not taking the job. I walked out of the committee room and left to make a decision. Chairman came out later and said, yeah, we accept what you're doing. So I called Paddy Code back in. I thought it was an awful thing that they left me go in the first place, completely. So he came back as my right-hand man. And it was the nearest thing that I could get to a manager on the line and me concentrating on the game. And as it was, and me being me, I was every bit as being ferocious on the pitches to get things right and do things right. It was affecting my performances. And I think if you look at the records, it was my poorest year for scoring goals in the player manager year, because I was more concerned about how were the fullbacks doing, how were the centre-backs pairing off. And I was playing the game halfway through talking to them instead of getting on with it and playing myself. And when the season ended, I was part of the 3 in a row, the last season, which made it 3 in a row. I stepped down automatically. They said, I'm going. And it took so much out of me. I wanted to leave the club at that stage. But it was only a short-term thinking of that. And I rejoined as a player and I said, no, it's not for me anymore. Now, I had management in me since I was 15 years of age. And it came again, Cork Celtic asked me to take over. It came again later with a new Waterford board. And it came again with Cove, and it came with all sorts of things that came along with it. So people said I was born into management. I don't feel I was. And I don't feel that I was even any good at management. But what I felt is that there's things I could do in a patched up situation. But long term, forget me.
There's a trait, and I hope you don't mind me saying it, but there's a trait throughout your career where you've kind of done things, I suppose, reluctantly in ways that you didn't want to do, but then you still found success along the way. So the sliding doors kind of situations that happens in life that kind of take you in different directions. You've kind of found yourselves in your situations where you kind of went, look, I don't want to do that. That's not me. That's not part of what I do. And yet, through the swings and the roundabouts, you've made it work, and you kind of made a career out of doing that and being successful along the way. Is that, I suppose, is that you perhaps being humble in your own kind of opinion of yourself, or kind of your own abilities, or something like that?
Well, it may be so. I can't say I have the answer to it, but what I do feel on basic as you speak, as you do, the management side of the game, to me, the best thing about football ever was playing it. The nice thing about it is watching it. But the next thing to playing it was management, and the effect of dealing with players, talking to them, laughing with them, making friends with them, falling out with them, rowing and everything else, was the next big thing. And that's why I stood in the game so long. I was in the game up to 1990, League of Ireland wise, up to 1994, 95 or something like that. And I managed 10 junior clubs. So managing the 10 junior clubs is hard going with players that actually would be limited in terms of League of Ireland skills and whatever. But I loved it. I give you one little thing that meant so much to me in terms of management. I went to manage the top junior clubs in Waterford, and we had success with them. I went into the lower divisions in Waterford football, the guys who just sort of were lucky to get a game and whatever. I joined my old club, St. Joseph's, and they were in the lower division of First Division as against the Premier Division. And this is only a few years ago. And they had a panel there, and they introduced me to the panel, and I saw him play a couple of times. And there's a lad played on the right wing, but he couldn't get a game. He get the odd game when somebody was sick or somebody was injured, or he'd come in as a sub, but he was never sort of thought of as a player. But I saw him after 2 or 3 games, and I said, look, I can do something for you. I'm going to put you in on the wing and on the right wing, and told him a few things about what I'd expect him to do. And he did very, very well. And we won in that division, when we were going nowhere for it. We won the cup. And he was part of it, and he was in the team, and he played very, very well. But I met him some years later, this is only a couple of years ago, in a restaurant, and he came over with his wife in the restaurant to me. He said, "Excuse me, Alfie," he said, "what is the trouble you having you down?" And he said, "Can I say something to you?" I said, "Of course can." I can't remember his name just now. And he said, "Do you know when you gave me my chance with St. Joseph's," he said, "and I came into the team, and I did well, and I enjoyed it. And you told me this and told me that." He said, "Do you know," he said, "if I had you at school," he said, "when I was studying," he said, "I would have passed my leaving cert with flying colours if you were my teacher." And I thought that was nice, you know?
I mean, it's I think people often, especially when you're not at a so-called professional level or high level of football, I think people often forget the influence that a manager can have. You know, we've talked to obviously ex-players, etc., on this show before, and they always kind of go back to the manager that they had at their schoolboy club, or the manager that they had in their academy team or whatever.
Yeah. Yes.
As the manager that probably had the most influence, or that they learned the most from, because the time that you're able to give players in terms of give them the attention that they need, talk to them, etc., it's probably not there at a high professional level, because a manager these days has to deal with so many other things other than just picking a team and going to training and stuff like that as well. So yeah, I totally get that, and interesting as well, because we've had Pat Byrne on the show as well, the legendary camera.
Yes.
Yeah. And he kind of
Good
said,
friend of mine.
he was talking about management and when he was in management, and he said, the best kind of time and the best feeling I got when I was managing was when I managed our local team that my son was on to I think it was they won the cup as well, similar to yourself. And he said that's the one I got most satisfaction from, because it was there's a purity there of just young lads. They're going out there and they just want to win a trophy, or they just want to do well. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's that. And I find that really interesting as well. I suppose if I was to ask you, you were in football for what, 40, 45 years. It was large, huge chunk of your life, etc. What do you look back on as the thing that you remember fondest, or the thing that it gave you the most? And what are your thoughts on your own career?
My thoughts on my own career, there would be many highlights for me, basically individual guys that I became great friends with, like the late Johnny Fulham was. We played against each other. He tightly marked me in games, but we became terrific friends. And he died a few years ago. And he was a lovely, lovely guy. And he came home from England for basically the same reasons that I did, that he was homesick and he was pressed in North End. And he had a great career at home. But in terms of what you're saying, in looking back over the 40, 50 years or whatever it was, I seem in my mind, whether I want to or not, I go back to my youth days more than, and I played in the Irish youth team at 17, again in Germany, in a tour of Germany or whatever. And of the 16 players that were in that squad, I think there was 14 of them went on to play League of Ireland football. And to this day, I remember some of them so well. Paddy Turner, Shamrock Rovers, Maurice Swan, the goalkeeper of Drumcondra, now living in the Waterford area, and nobody's seen him for years. A chap called Jerry Lane from Cork, Bootsy Lynch from Cork, Bobby Brown, John Brown's brother, John Brown, the famous hurler. Bobby was a goalkeeper, the quietest, nicest guy you ever met in your life. There were so many of them, and that youth team that first of all played Liverpool Youths. I think Tommy Smith was in the Liverpool Youths, played in Dublin. And unfortunately, who played in that team as well was one infamous Dutchie Holland. But that was a very sad sight. And that girl, Veronica Guerin, that was murdered. It was so sad. But that youth team and that era of my pals at home, Greg Clooney and the guys, I looked just the other day at a photograph of when we sat on the steps of De La Salle School for a confirmation photograph. And there's 48 school lads in it. And to my recollection of recently, there's only about five still alive. And I look at those guys and playing in the schoolyard in De La Salle. It's unbelievable. Can I tell you one thing little quickly about De La Salle? I grew up in National School in De La Salle, and my brothers Dixie and Georgie joined De La Salle after they left Mount Sion, when my father thought that, what did he say? The brothers, the Christian brothers weren't very Christian there. So I went to De La Salle. But in De La Salle, I was asked about 6 months ago to go back to the school after 70 years to talk to the pupils. They had 300 pupils and their own World Cup competition. And I was asked to present the prizes and whatever. And they brought me back to the school, and they brought me back to the class that I sat in, and where the brother taught us. And everybody was into football. The play time was a football match, and the teachers, the national school, joined in, and the brothers. And they were good ones, because there was a few of them weren't so good, but they were lovely. And when I went to the presentation of the prizes of the 300 and odd pupils that they had there, the principal took me aside and said, do you know what you're looking out there in the playground and they're all clapping and whatever? She said, of the 300 or 350 pupils they had, I can't remember the exact number, 53 of them were of different nationalities. And there was black lads, there was Chinese lads, there was Indian lads, Asian lads, English lads, Americans, and all 53 nationalities. They are playing in their World Cup. And I was presenting prizes to them. And they asked me to write on their shorts, write on their backsides, write on. It was terrific. And that was 70 years later. And it was more than 70 years. It was, I'm 85 now. I'm coming up to 86 next month. I was 14. That's 72, 73 years ago. So that's what football meant to me, basically, and what it allowed me to do. The people that I met and the people that, because of football, brought me into these positions and opened doors for me. It was fantastic.
Brilliant. Well, Alfie, I speak to a lot of listeners as well when I say this. Thanks very much for your time. It's been a wonderful, wonderful journey going through your career as well. And you have a book coming out, or a book being made at this moment in time as well. Do we know when it's going to be ready?
Yeah, for Christmas, hopefully. Christmas. Yeah, September, Christmas, yeah.
Fantastic. Yeah. Well, I hope people put it in their diaries and go out and buy it, because it's going to be an amazing book to read, I think, because it's such a fascinating kind of career that you've had, and I know you've shared a lot of memories for us, but you've also made a lot of memories for a lot of fans and a lot of people, and I suppose that's really what matters as well. So, Alfie, thanks very much for joining us on the show.
Ian, before you go, can I just say thank you very much, and also the fact that the book, when it is written, it's all my part of it will be going to charity, a local charity here in Waterford. So I am saying to people, I don't care if you read it, but please buy it.
Okay. You might just give the charity a plug. Who's the charity?
It's a CC house. It's for the older folk being looked after for lunches, dinners, and so on. And it's from a place where I was brought up initially, where I was born, in Dominic Place. It's called in Waterford.
Fantastic.
So there you are. The CC house.
A gent, as always, Alfie. Thanks very much for your time, and we look forward to the book.
Thank you, Keelan. You're very good, and you're very good to talk to. So, and I enjoyed it immensely.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, that's it for this week's podcast. On next week's show, we're on a journey with the Northern Ireland national team as they qualify for and head to the 1958 World Cup in Sweden. So join us back here for that. Share the show on your social media channels, as well as liking, subscribing, and turning on notifications to the show on whatever platform that you listen to us on. And remember to support your local League of Ireland and Northern Ireland Football League side. It's our history, it's our game. Bye for now.